Hello. Welcome back to this thing. Hello. Welcome back to This Is Fine with Sam and Eric. Eric, what are you up to today?
Just watching the world burn. Trying not to go on blue sky because whenever I do, I get like super anxious and
Yeah.
reading the news and then trying to keep my head down and think about what we can do to, help solve this situation and like what
Yeah.
our path forward are.
It's kind of ridiculous to say, but I was just talking to some friends about this today, and they were all, having negative emotional reactions, and I told them that I what I've been doing, and I advise them to do the same, which is you see a Democratic Party official or an elected official, just like turn off the video or like just scroll away. Because it's been really good for my mental health to just like not even the good ones, just like not watch any of them. Uh, Unfortunately, that's where we're at least for me.
Yeah, I know. It's just like whenever I'm not in the car, my wife puts it on like MSNBC, and so I jump in and then I get sucked in, and I'm just like, oh my god! Then I'm at like red lights, like scrolling through blue skies, like what's happening now?
Right.
And then like it's not good, but like at the same time, um, trying to keep informed and abreast of everything that's going on, and like trying to figure out what the signal and the noise of all this stuff is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's like there's so like the Kennedy Center and all these other things that are like this like assaults on like obvious like own the libs type things.
Sure.
And then I think like the stuff like what is Elon really doing, right? And like he's giving himself contracts for like armored security trucks, right? Like cyber
Yeah.
trucks. And like
Did you
last
see?
time no, this is like last time I checked, like like really heavy electric cars didn't like always work very well. So like I'm curious
Yeah.
about why spending $400 million on like armored cyber electric cars was a good idea.
I bet that never even produced the car. He just pockets the money and goes away. So, yeah, I mean, like, did you see this press conference that he gave yesterday in the White House? Like, well, Trump was sitting there like all pouty next to him.
Yeah, and it's like Musk kid was like, shut your mouth.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
Like,
yeah, yeah. He actually cursed. I think he said, didn't he say, "Shut your fucking mouth"?
I
Who's
don't
gonna
think he
say?
actually cursed. I think it was just
No,
shut your mouth or
yeah,
like hush your mouth or whatever. I mean, I think we can be artful in our lip reading skills.
yeah.
But the yeah, I don't think it was anything. If he did say that, I mean, like,
Yeah,
no,
just
like, how is Alon talking to his kid?
yeah. That's what I'm curious about. Whenever I see this, is like how it just shows you who's been saying what around him, right? So,
Oh yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Like like Alon's definitely telling his kid that he's the real president, right? Like like that orange guy with like the bad goggle spray pan definitely is
yeah.
not in charge.
Okay, definitely not. You can tell from kids. I mean, can I tell you something funny that happened with my kid the other day?
Yeah, definitely.
My kid's 4. The other day, she looks at me, and she goes, "Fuff,"
That
and she thought that was a curse word. She must have heard it from me or somebody, like. And she goes, she knew she was supposed to say it. She went, "Fuff, fuff,"
oh
and I'd be like, "Whoa." That's to me that's preferable over her saying the real word. So I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't like. I let it be a big deal so that she would keep saying fuff instead of the real thing. But yeah,
yeah, no, my kid, my first son, I am from Boston and am a Boston driver, and so yeah, the first time he really heard it and said it, I was like driving into a rotary in Cambridge, and someone cut me off, and I was just like, "Fuck you!" Like, rah, rah. And then all of a sudden in the back seat, my 2.5-year-old goes, "Fuck," and they start saying it over and over and over again. And I'm like
you're like,
driving to like
no.
Harvard for toddlers, like the Cambridge Day School. I'm like, okay, can't say that. Like I was just like, no, it's fat or fat, like
Yeah.
fat. I'm trying to get him to change what he was saying, and then drop him off, and I'm like crossing my fingers because it's
Yeah, he
like all
doesn't say anything.
it's like Harvard daycare, right? And so like
Yeah,
there's like all
Harvard
like
daycare.
30 like bougie like crazy people, and I get
I'm,
this call at 2 o'clock
no.
um, and they're like, okay, well, Sawyer learned a new word and has taught everyone in the class it. It was like the only word he was using. He sang a song and like, replaced every word with fuck. I was just like, oh my, it was like the worst
Oh,
possible
Eric.
outcome. And like, oh, it was like, like I was a pariah in the school after that. Like I was just they're like you're the one who taught like my kid how to say fuck at 2.5.
Eric, that's
Yeah.
I'm like that. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the scene in Ferris Bueller where they're at the nice restaurant and like the music playing in the back was like do 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 do, right, and they're like throwing shrimp at each other.
I know. It always is a good radio in the Baltimore household. So like,
That's why we get along, man. That's why we get
yeah,
along.
it's just like life's imperfections. Like we
Yeah.
embrace them.
Why would we?
We
Why
own
would we
them.
want to be bigger?
God forbid.
Yeah.
God forbid. God forbid.
Speaking of
Not my
imperfect,
family at least.
speaking of imperfect, do we want to talk at all about some of the stuff, some of like the details of what's been going on? What have you been seeing in the news since you've been following it? What have you been seeing in the news that's been alarming you?
Alarming. I mean, like a lot of different things have been alarming me, but like most seriously is just like the fact that like we're continuing to like hamstring our economic prospects well into the
Yeah,
future.
I know, right?
Um, you see housing stocks and like an auto industry and starting to take a dive. I think that is just very worrisome. I mean, like if Trump, it's like much like Trump's own money. If like he had done nothing, he would have inherited a growing stockpile of cash,
Yeah,
and the economy would have been going up. And like I am very worried and concerned that he's actually going to crash it. Right? Like I just think that there's so many unintended consequences from cutting like vast swaths of things without really doing it by a process that
yeah.
it's going to wind up hurting everyone, right? They're
Well,
talking about cutting 200 billion out of Medicaid at the same time in the
yeah,
budget. Like,
yeah. That's done. I'm curious. Do you think that they're crashing the economy on purpose?
um, I'm concerned that they might be. It's like crash the economy, don't waste the crisis, reorganizing everything
Right.
into like an alternative sort of system,
Yeah,
and
I would
AI
just
rules
say,
the world.
yeah, AI ruling the world, right? Yes, that's definitely part of the plan, right? But yeah, but I think the thing that's making me think that it's plausible that it would be like an on purpose thing is because the overall plan that the Republicans want is to like, from my perspective as a partisan anti-Republican, is to like uh further retrench and reinforce the class system so that uh the vast majority of people are like completely dependent on an employer that they can't escape in order to feed themselves and their families. And so, like, a recession, a very deep recession, would be like a really great opportunity to like you said, reorganize things so that it's just sort of resetting expectations for the American public that that they don't have any choice in their life anymore. They got to do whatever it is that their employer says, whoever that employer may be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think that's. I mean, there's definitely some nefarious intent happening.
Yeah,
I mean, like, I also really think that,
well, some
um,
complaint.
yeah, like, it would be, I'd feel better if there was that kind of nefarious planning
Yeah,
behind it. But at the same time, like, it's just like I just feel like they just like everything Elon does is for the lulz, right? Like it seems like,
right.
right? And like, all of this stuff and all like there was that New York Times article which I think caught this really well that all like everything he's doing is content oriented, right? It's like how do you like own
Yeah,
the libs and like how do you do these things and convince liberals to be fighting for US aid which no one knows about, right?
it's very performative, right? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So in some ways, it's super strategic, and they've been thinking about this for a very long time. On the other end, like there just seems to be absolutely no recognition about like how things actually function in government, and it seems to be a very sort of basic understanding of like this interconnectivity and like how these things work, and like this seem obvious to me, like the whole like let's turn Gaza into a real estate venture while we cut the CIA, the FBI, and all of our intelligence gathering seems like a really bad idea to me. Like let's inflame tensions and a part of the world that has historically not been the safest.
yeah.
And at the same time, like completely kill our ability to gather intelligence. Like it just seems like like the height of insanity, and like it seems insane that like Republicans or anyone else isn't sort of standing up to it. Um, and like, it's just it's going to reorder the world in a way where we're going to be very surprised when we don't have a seat at the table at the same way in a year or two, right?
Right, right,
Um, and like for some that might be a good thing, but most of our soy is bought overseas, right? And like our ability to like sustain a lot of these rural areas that are like in a lot of ways the life of America and our farming and backbone for all of these things um, will collapse, right? In much the same way that it did underneath globalization and NAFTA.
right.
Um, and the reordering of that is something that I don't know how will happen, right? But like um, I think it's incumbent upon us to be really thinking about how we're going to fight that, and or like how we're going to rebuild the world order, because like right now the Democrats don't have any power.
Right. Yeah. I do think that, like, I mean, you and I have been talking about this a while, about this like idea of, what historical analogies to where we're at, and like, that I think what a lot of people who are in politics may be missing right now from our mutual perspective. Correct me if I'm not presenting you well here, but I feel like I am. Is that like we're so far behind? Like they've been working on this whole new paradigm for a decade, and we're like the vast majority of Democrats really only are becoming aware of this in like the last year or
Like now.
so, couple years, yeah, like or literally right now, right? And so there's like a level of surprise that is coming with this, and so a lot of people are like, oh my god, what do we do literally right now to stop this? How do we fight back? It's like, okay, well, yeah, we can try to fight back now, but like in some ways, what we've got to do is think a little bit longer term, because whether or not we're able to make an impact fighting right now, which I think we probably are, we're not actually going to be able to win in like an ongoing systematic, like build a machine that allows the Democrats to win. Like if that is your concept, right? That's not going to happen anytime soon, right? Like even if we win a majority in Congress in 2026, it's not going to be because there's some kind of like uprising of democratic spirit. It's just going to be like backlash to Trump doing all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And it has nothing to do with the party actually getting its shit together, right? And so like we do need the party to get its shit together, or at least some political force, whether it's the Democrats or not. And that is a much longer term project than like a couple months, right? So
Yeah.
so
I mean, I don't think the party is the one that can do it necessarily, because
yeah,
like the brand idea is like abysmal, and like I think
yeah,
it's going to be really hard for them to like establish and build a movement. I've been saying this a lot, that it's really up to everyday people and us, and like people that are actually out there to talk about it.
yeah.
And like all like the Republican Party moved like this hard authoritarian direction was at starting with the Tea Party, right? But that was like an astroturf organization, so funded by like millionaires that got it up and running. But it was an organization that existed outside of the party and grew in movement and then pulled the party to it, right?
I
Um,
mean, you're right about that. I would say that there's like a long history of this. It goes all the way back to the John Birch Society,
oh yeah,
which it's been going on since this like reactionary stuff has been going on. It's actually linked, I think, probably back to Roosevelt, right?
oh yeah,
Uh, right, like Roosevelt sort of started this like because of Roosevelt's massive success as a politician. We've been on like a 100-year project by the right, by people who are basically against uh, democratically elected institutions that then lead to government administration of the industrial state. Like all that has been like something that is they've been on like 100-year course to try to get rid of it, and now they're succeeding, right? So
yeah.
uh, so going back to what you originally were saying, right? Like just being able to if the thing that has animated the right for 100 years is getting rid of the New Deal, and I think that it is, then they don't actually have a plan either for what's next. They do have first mover advantage, right? In that they'll likely be in power when the dust settles, right? But um, that doesn't mean that they're going to have a compelling vision for that or one that is actually going to work. Uh, and
No.
so and so maybe coming up with that vision for what's next, assuming that the New Deal does die, which it looks like it will, and the industrial state as we know of it, like the ABCs of all the government agencies, all that, like what comes next, right? So I don't know. I mean, do you have ideas or
Yeah,
uh,
and like and this was like, one of the things that I have fallen sort of in love with, right, is like this idea of citizens assemblies,
mhm,
and which are basically, um they're sort of non-government bodies, where people are selected by sortition, like a jury
what is
pool.
person?
And it's like, so like a jury pool, like you pick people randomly in the society
Got
and make sure that you hit like all, like, like the representative demographics.
it. Hmm.
But you have people from the like far right to far left, a baker, and like, an auto salesman and like a professor or whatever. You have like, all people that are all different walks of life that come together for a set of weekends to decide on like a contentious policy outcome, hear from experts, hear from other people, and then come together and make a recommendation with like 80% or whatever the number is, for a policy proposal.
Hmm.
They worked in Europe, in Ireland, and they've been in a number of really interesting ways. In Ireland, when they were deciding on right to choose and abortion, they had a citizens assembly that was engaged with that, with the majority of that country, which is very diverse in its beliefs there, and were able to come out with a recommendation that it go to a referendum, and that's how abortion was legalized there.
Okay.
And
Cool.
like the process, like, was able to break through a lot of these societal barriers, in order to make things happen, right? And it doesn't mean it's always like a liberal outcome. These citizens assemblies also
Oh,
have conservative outcomes as well, like around crime and like housing in Germany and a couple other things. Like, they've had a much more conservative outcome. But what I think is really interesting about this is that, I mean, I think that people are extremely fed up with our politics. They have no connection to elected officials besides like TV advertisements every couple of years. Um, and for good reason, right? Like the only people that are really running for office these days, I mean, there are good people, but like, a lot of times you get a lot of people that like don't care about how slimy and like your reputation is like besmirched and whatnot, and have like this huge egos, and like are basically star fuckers a lot of times, that want to be close to power, right?
yeah.
So it's
That's been my
like,
experience
you
too.
know
That I
yeah,
ran into a
we're like
lot of
we're
people.
the most Machiavellian members of our society are our elected like officials, more often than not.
Yeah. No, it's not
And
totally universal. There are plenty of great people too. It's just that it's going to attract people who naturally who want to be close to power, and like that's
yeah,
their ego
exactly.
is involved. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's become like, it's just like, it's a very like, and people sense that, right? And it's like, people aren't stupid. Like when you ask people about politics these days, like they say they think it's all corrupt, like 67, 68% people say everyone's
Yeah.
corrupt, and they're fed up with it. And the things that they want to see happen don't happen. And so what if we were able to create a system that was like, that people actually engaged with, that is their fellow citizens? Like, I don't think it's true that you need to have 18 degrees to decide what's best for your community.
No,
And like,
I
that's
don't
like,
agree.
we've over indexed to those types of people. And they're great and brilliant, and like, their expertise is valued. But I don't think a lot of those people have actually spent a lot of time with people that are working three jobs in order to make ends meet, or in like, more far flung parts of a district or or a state. And I think it's really is possible to create a system that allows for engagement, and also for true bipartisanship, or like understanding people's humanity, right? And like seeing people face to face and come to solutions that are beneficial to everyone, right? That in a way
Yeah.
that isn't as easily politicized. So like, I like those ideas. They're doing one in Fort Collins. They did one recently in Bend, Oregon, over land use issues,
Hmm.
that I thought was really interesting. And like, again, came out. It wasn't like a liberal or conservative result, and I don't know exactly. I don't remember the exact details of it, so I won't say much. But like, it came out like it's something that had been an intractable issue for like 20 years over land use was resolved, right?
Right.
And so I think that is really interesting because like I really do believe that like as much as I am mad at people that voted for Trump or whatnot, like a lot of them still are like like they're good people who like have like are in this media system, and like I think that if we can talk to them and understand them, that we can get
Yeah.
some of them, right?
Yeah, this
So
is actually a really good point. I just saw this TikTok video I wanted to actually bring up and watch because I feel like it actually I thought ahead of time about this exact point um and I thought it was relevant to what we're doing right now. So uh Jay, could you bring it up and make it visible on the screen so we can watch the video, the TikTok video? Okay, great. Yep, yeah, we can see it.
I know you guys don't want to do me any favors, but I'm asking that you actively listen to the things that I'm getting ready to tell you. And that's something I can tell you I've not always been good at, is actively listening. But in my messages, I have been actively listening and actively having conversations with people based on politics. So please listen to what I'm saying before you react, and please understand where I'm coming from whenever I tell you this. So you keep saying that we told you this is coming, we told you this is coming, we were screaming at the top of our lungs, now you got to fuck around and find out. What you don't understand is the way that TikTok works and any social media works. The FYP is made up, it's an algorithm that keeps showing you stuff that you interact with. So just because you're posting something doesn't mean that I see what you're posting, because it's not the stuff that I'm interacting with. So I hope that explains why I'm not seeing, and why a lot of people aren't seeing the stuff that you guys are posting. There's a lot of people that are willing to listen to you, but whenever you get in the comments and you say, fuck around and find out, or I hope you lose your farm, or just anything hateful, it takes that whole group of people and you shut them off and they no longer want to listen to what you're saying. Does that make sense? Everyone acts like everybody's either far left or far right, when the majority of America is in the middle. I've explained this to a couple people that messaged me. It's like having two abusive parents. You got
So this guy's a farmer who was relying on a government program that just got it didn't even legally get terminated. He just got a notice. This is in a different video. He first talked about this, which is how he got all this attention. There was like a notice that they were just going to stop paying the contract. They're just like, oh, like the contract is still in effect legally. They're just going to illegally not pay the contract, right? And so now, so he's freaking out about that as a farmer because he made a big investment in all the things that will allow him to pay to do that contract. And the contract is something that would like allow him to continue. It's like installing equipment on his farm that would allow him to run his farm with energy efficiency, so that he's not creating a lot of greenhouse gases, and but he's still able to make a profit on his farm if he makes these investments, right? So he made the investments up front, and now they're not going to pay the contract in the back end, and so he's mad about that. He's upset about that, right? And then this got attention because some people who are like currently Democrats, like current Democratic voters or activists, noticed this, started pushing it around to like Democratic sphere of TikTok and being like, you like Trump voters are idiots. We told you about this. They've been using this FAFO, FAFO, which is fuck around and find out, which, I definitely have indulged in this Schadenfreude before too. So it's like I'm not like a perfect human on this, right? But it's like there are a lot of people who they're being so disruptive. Trump and Elon are being so disruptive. Elon is being disruptive. And then and they're finding out what's happening, and so people are like dunking on this guy, right? And so his point, I think, is there are 2 points here that I would really like to highlight. One is a critique of the Democrats' strategy for 2024. As he says, as this like farmer from North Dakota or whatever notes, the For You page is only about content you've already been interacting with. So if we wanted to reach guys like him with our election message, we might have wanted to create channels and operations that have content on them that he actively wants to watch.
Yeah, and just adding to that, like like all this research came out afterwards that like what is it, 1 in 3 young men saw Democratic messaging at all.
Right.
And like we just weren't there, right? And like it just felt like our entire content strategy was like talking to people that we already knew would probably like us.
Right.
And like, that's great, but like at the same time, politics is about addition and not subtraction. And we've been playing this game, as I've said a couple times,
Yeah.
of turnout is